Hello ladies and gentlemen, today I will be working on a 2001 Pontiac Grand Prix. This has the 3.8 liter engine, and we will be replacing the valve cover gaskets here on the front and on the back, and then I'm also going to be replacing the upper intake manifold gaskets, along with replacing the serpentine belt and all the fuel injector O-rings. So stay tuned and I will guide you on how to replace all these. Alright, so in order to remove the alternator, first thing you need to do is disconnect your battery. I recommend disconnecting the ground first. Next, you will need to remove your belt. So this is a tensioner right here. You take a 15mm wrench and put it on here, and then you pull upward on the wrench. After you're done with that, you will come down here with that same 15mm wrench, loosen this bolt. You're okay to remove it now. And then same thing with this bolt here and this bolt here. Remove all three of those bolts and your alternator will be free. Next, you'll come to the back of the alternator and disconnect your power leads to it, and then this will just lift right up and pull out. Once you get it raised, you can disconnect the other harness that is connected to it. Alright, so first thing you'll want to do here is removing this bracket here. You have a 10mm bolt right here, and then there's a 16mm nut right here. So go ahead and remove both of those. So there's a metal bracket right here on the back side of the valve cover. It has two 13mm nuts that are holding it in place. You'll want to loosen both of those and pull the bracket straight up. You can see that's the pattern, sitting just like that, and they are two 13mm. When doing the valve covers, it will be easiest to remove your ignition wires. So in order to do that, you'll need to know the firing order so you can put them back in the same place. I recommend, if you don't know it off the top of your head, to tape each one of them and then number them. So this is how they go. You got right here, starting here, 1, 3, 5, and then 2, 4, and 6. And then you'll see that these are also numbered. So in that order, you would put them all in. So 1, actually, this right here goes to this first plug right here. So, and it just goes 1, 3, 5, and then 2, 4, 6. Alright, just a trick when removing these ignition wires. This metal piece comes off with the rubber boot, and using something like this to get on it, like so, and then prying out helps pop it off. The rear ones can be a big pain if you don't have any leverage and there's not a lot of space back there. Whatever you do, do not pull on these wires, because you will just end up destroying your ignition wires, and then you will have to replace them. Alright, so once you have your alternator removed, you'll want to remove this bracket that the tensioner is on. If your tensioner is bad, which I believe this one is seizing up, you'll want to replace this. So in order to remove this here, make sure you have a catch pan underneath the vehicle, or drain the coolant from the radiator as I did. You'll want to remove this here. This is a 15mm, also a 15mm down here, and then let's see if I can show you, but there's another one right there. Remove all three of those bolts. Once they are removed, you'll come over to this pipe here. Use like a large flathead or a small pry bar and slowly sort of try to work that pipe out of the intake there. And then do the same thing at the bottom here. You'll pry out and try to slowly work this out of the vehicle. So I noticed on a lot of people's videos that they are not showing how to remove this bracket. They're just showing you how to clean and install the valve cover gasket, which in itself is easy, but getting to it and having the accessibility you need is a pain in the ass. So once you have this removed, come over here. I believe there are 6 bolts on the valve cover. They are all 10 millimeter. You can loosen them all the way out. They shouldn't pull out because they should be stuck in there with grommets. So loosen those all the way out, and then you'll just have a free valve cover sitting there until this bracket is removed. Right, so I have the coolant drained. There's probably still more in here. So I have a catch pan underneath it. I'm going to take a pry bar. I'm going to set it right underneath this neck here and try to see if I can push and work it loose. Make sure you do not press against your intake. These are plastic and you would crack it and have to replace all that. Alright, so here I have it all pulled out. It is important to clean all this really well. The gasket is definitely deteriorated. You can see it piecing up there. Same thing with the larger one down there. Now I have complete access to the valve cover there, so I should be able to remove that easily now. That instead of disconnecting everything and having it in my way, I just put a little bungee cord on it and pulled it off to the side. And now I'll go ahead and get back on that valve cover, remove all 6 of the 10 millimeter bolts, break them all loose, back them out, and then this here should just pull right off. Removing these wires, you can use a pair of pliers here. Just grab the edges of this blue connector here. I don't know if I can my fingers doesn't lift up. You see how it lifted up? It doesn't take pressure or anything like that. And then you can push in on this black tab here, and you'll be able to remove your injector wires. Alright, so with all that removed, that bracket on the back side, you can just lift straight out on your valve cover. It'll come just like that. So these should not just fall out of place. You can see, let's see, they're not just falling, so they should be good as long as you're not hitting them too much. And I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up, make it look pretty, and then we'll reset our new gaskets. I recommend using like a good quality Felpro gasket on these, so you don't end up doing it twice. So I'll show you a quick view of what it looks like now. And I'm going to go through and clean everything, and then I'll show you it afterward. Alright, so I just finished cleaning the valve cover. It's not super awesome or amazing or anything. I did use a toothbrush inside all these grooves here because there is old built up oil in here, and then I just used brake cleaner and a rag to wipe it all down. So there we have it. I am going to install my new gasket onto the valve cover itself. You'll notice here that there are little tabs, so make sure that you line your gasket up according to the tabs. And another thing I recommend is not using any silicone. Buy a good gasket, you should not need silicone. In some cases you'll use silicone on the corners to keep the gasket from moving, but you do not need to over apply any silicone on these edges. It'll just cause the gasket to fail. Alright, so when replacing these, the first set of gaskets that I received were incorrect. There is a small tab right here. That's how you'll know if the gasket's in their correct position. Another thing I recommend is that if you are replacing these, purchase these grommets, the replacement grommets. The old ones get pretty soft and oil could leak out of them. Here are the part numbers, the Felpro part numbers. That is for the grommets. And here's the part number for the valve cover gaskets. So put all those, you press them into place. This shouldn't move once it's in there. It can if you bump it too much or anything, but I'm going to place the grommets, and then I'm going to position this on the vehicle and start my bolts, and then I will torque them down in the correct pattern. When you're cleaning these, I just used a drill with a wire brush on it, and I just cleaned these grooves really well. And then I pulled my O-rings off with this tool. That way, if for some reason it's not in the kit, the intake kit that I've purchased, that I will be able to take them into the store and hopefully match them up. But there you have them. Pretty. Alright, so I have my valve cover and the gaskets in position, and now I will go ahead and start all of my bolts. So I have my valve cover in place and torqued down. The torque specifications on this are 89 inch-pounds, so you'll want to just do a crisscross pattern here, switch over to this side, come down here, and then over here, and then down. Alright, so now to this bracket. This bracket is a bit of a pain in the ass. I was originally just going to replace these O-rings here and here. You can purchase new elbows for these. They stock come as plastic elbows. These have already been converted to metal. What I did, because they do not offer just the O-ring, is I ordered both of the plastic elbows, which was about $12 for both of them. I'll share the part with you. And then I'm gonna have to remove each elbow from here. So as you can see here, I marked it. Same thing with the bottom down here. I'm gonna remove each elbow and replace the O-ring that is right on the inside here. Here is the part that I will be pulling the O-ring off of. So you can see that that one's a little larger, and so is this one. So that purple O-ring will go on here. I'll pull it out, put the orange ones on there as well, and I'll do the same thing for the top here. So I'm not going to be using these plastic elbows. I'm going to reuse the metal ones, but you can only purchase those O-rings in this kit. They don't sell them separately. So hopefully that helps. The part number on it is right up there in the top corner, 47065. They do offer these in metal at the part store as well. They're about $12.99. Alright, so make sure you mark these before removing them. And just twist them and pull. So that one came off easily. Make sure that you don't wipe away your markings so you can line them up. Alright, this second one was a lot harder to get off. I did remove them by hand with a lot of pulling and twisting. I do not recommend using tools on these because you will damage these. They're just aluminum and they're very light duty. Looks like I'll have a lot of cleaning to do. All of this is hardened on there, but it looks like they just used a silicone grease to get them in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean these up and replace. When you go to clean these after you have them removed, use like maybe a screwdriver or something. Don't dig into the metal. You don't want to score it or scar it or anything. But get these edges in there if there's anything in there. This gasket, when I went to pull it off here, just fell apart. It was in pieces. So if I would not have replaced this, I would be dealing with a leak once I had this reinstalled. So as it's important to clean these fittings here, you also want to come over here, and I'm using a battery terminal, a wire brush, and I'm lifting it up and trying to clean it level so that nothing can fall in there. And just spinning it until it looks clean in here. You could use a vacuum on the end of it, or you could use some brake cleaner to rinse it all out. There's no really easy way to clean this out, so I have a bit on the end of my drill. And that got all of that silicone or whatever that is in there. Might even be gasket material.
You put way in that hole that I was working on. And then it might work.
So I went ahead and applied a little bit of anti-seize to the 3 bolts here. They were pretty rough coming out. I was a little concerned that they could break coming out. These get torqued down. This one, and the one on the bottom side there get torqued down to 36 foot-pounds. Alright, so removing this front valve cover is much easier than the rear valve cover. First thing you'll need to do here is there are three 13mm bolts that you will want to remove. If you follow this bracket back right here, there's a bolt here, and there's a bolt on this side. Next, you'll want to follow this black bracket right here down, and there's a bolt right where my finger is pointing. Those three are 13mm. Next, you'll want to remove three 15mm bolts. This one here, and then you'll have one right through here that I've already removed. You'll need a 15mm wrench and then a ratchet or something, because you need to have a hold on both sides of it to remove it. Once you have those removed, this bracket right here, this black one, will just come down, and then you can see that's where the third 13mm bolt is. Set that off to the side. Next, with this bracket removed, you can push the whole thing this way and up, and then this will actually lift out of the way. So there we have that, and now we have access to all of our bolts for the valve cover here. You'll have to move a little bit of wires to work through there, but nothing compared to the rear valve cover. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all these, and we will replace that gasket just as we did the rear, and torque it all down in a crisscross pattern. So I'm going to start over here, then go over here, 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 and then I'll hit these two center ones here. And those are 89 inch-pounds that you'll want to torque those to. Alright, so you can see here that I cleaned the surface pretty well. When I am done with this, I will be doing an oil change on the vehicle. I did spray brake cleaner to help clean some of this, and then I used some of this like little SOS pad to clean the surface area. So now I'll install my new gaskets and grommets onto my valve cover, and I'll reinstall the first one. Alright, so the 15mm bolts will be torqued down to 50 foot-pounds, and then the 13mm bolts will be torqued down to 32 foot-pounds. So you have these two back here, the nut on the bottom here that'll be torqued down to 32 foot-pounds, and then these here will be torqued down to 50, and along with this one here. Okay, so I have my new valve covers installed, and I also have my intake reinstalled. If you're interested in a guide to replacing your intake gaskets, please subscribe and like my videos, and check out my channel. I will have a separate video for replacing this intake. Also, another thing I came across on these vehicles, I work on this engine fairly often, but these right here where the fuel rails connect, where they have that connection, they leak all the time on this backside. So I'm in the process of trying to figure out a fix that does not involve replacing all of your fuel lines. So I will be working out a solution for this. So like I said, subscribe, and I will have something in the near future to fix that. Those lines leak fuel out of them, and they are super notorious for just causing issues. So thank you again for watching, and I hope this video has been helpful.